Well, hello everyone. We welcome you out to yet another episode of Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions. The show where we talk the week's events in Geek. Except when it's Zak Snyder and then we don't give a crap about him. I don't know why I'm going into a Jordan Underneath impression, but I kind of am. So welcome everybody out to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions. I hope you guys have had a good couple of weeks because, wow, it has been a while for a lot of you. I know a lot of Drax subscribers and Geek News fans actually went out to Alex's episode, but a lot of you also went, well, where the heck are you guys last week? Well, technically, I put up the answer what we were doing as of yesterday, which was we went out to go see Batman v Superman, like we said we would. So we did. The episode's up on Podomatic and on YouTube. I forgot to advertise that, so the YouTube episode is up, so you guys can see what we thought about Batman v Superman. Spoiler alert, it wasn't very good.
No.
At least as far as we were concerned. We are all, I'm assuming, very disappointed that it's earning, like, what is it, 600 million now? Yeah. I'm sorry, people. That pretty much guarantees Zak Snyder is the director for Justice League. I'm sad to say it. But we're going to focus on the happier times because, once again, this is the weekly show where we talk the week's events in Geek. I am your host, Adam Mickelson. I hope everybody has had a good week. I hope you guys were at least able to enjoy the train wreck that Zak Snyder created called Batman v Superman. As for me, well, I just spent most of the week recovering because, as you might be able to tell from the review, I still had a pretty nasty cough. But thankfully, we got through it. We now have that review in the books. And now we can move on to other things because I'm so happy to say the slow season for news and geek is kind of over. Because now that we're in April, I can already see Romney kind of cringing there. It's not technically over yet, but we are now getting to a point where things are kind of transitioning into the summer advertisements. So hopefully things will pick up on the show. We apologize and thank you all for your patience, but hopefully it's just as crazy for you guys. I know especially 2 weeks ago when this guy forgot to offer up his gnome goats. So let's go ahead and start there because I'm being joined by my wonderful panel of fellow YouTubers and critics and content creators, and starting with the Shadow Blazer himself, who has had kind of a bad week.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, so do you want to go into that, or are you going to let your video speak for itself?
Might as well go into it here, just for anybody who doesn't follow me actively. And, well, unfortunately, yeah, I had on top of already working a full week here, I've had an unpleasant couple days, as spent the better part of 5 hours putting together a review and uploading that review to get the usual instant cock block, blocked worldwide. Filed my usual dispute following putting in all my fair use rationale, only for Sony to bite me in the ass again and say, sorry, the claimant stands and now you receive a copyright strike. So for the next 6 months, I'm stuck making 15-minute videos and won't be able to live stream anything.
Yeah, which is kind of sad for you, because I think, were you doing your X-Files stuff via live stream? I know one of your games was
not via not via live stream, but those are fairly lengthy. They're usually more than 20 minutes long, so that means I've had to now start diverting resources back to my secondary channel, which I started up ages ago, but haven't really put anything on because I haven't had many problems getting content onto my main channel until now.
Well, let's just bring up the offending video here for a second, which was the fact that Alex wanted to abuse crowdfunding campaigns in order to fuel his personal statue his figurine collection. Which I have to say, shame on you, Shadow Blazer! Shame on you! No Gundam in there! No Gundam whatsoever!
Well, usually all I find are Gundam die-cast models, which are like several $100, but I'll probably start looking to add some Lacus Klein to my collection.
You should, sir. You should! But yeah, we actually feel bad because it's one of those times where YouTube is being a douche, and we really wish the things were different, but you can't really change that. I'm sure. I know I've had to deal with it on my channel. I'm assuming Romney's also had to deal with it on his, much less Brinton or Aldo.
Yeah, that's why I still haven't made another episode of From the Shelf yet, is because when I uploaded the first one, TMS sent the block.
TMS is in... No,
Tokyo
wait, I'm
Tokyo
thinking
Movie
of
Shinsha.
for some reason.
Yeah, Tokyo Movie Shinsha, the animation studio that just happened to animate the anime that I was reviewing on that episode.
Wonderful. And speaking of Stephen Romney, of Romney's reviews, of From the Shelf, of all of the wonderful stuff that you do, now that you've had a week to get the screaming out, to hit your Zak Snyder doll, which I'm assuming you have, but I'm pretty sure you don't. You probably just painted a pillow like Zak Snyder and punched it a dozen times. How are you doing this fine week?
Yeah, I'm not going to go through the trouble of making an effigy. That's giving him too much credit.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I didn't think that one through.
Yeah.
Because in order to make that pillow, you would have to get... It's like giving something a name. You give it power. So.
Exactly.
But that's okay because, well, we're going to take away a little bit of that power tonight. I can already tell you that much at least. Because we're going to be making fun of him. So we actually have quite an agenda tonight because this week was a little bit more tech-filled rather than entertainment. But we also had a couple of things that people really wanted our opinions on. And we also have a couple of things that are going to piss me off and piss off a few other people, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and get into the stories this week, because we have quite a bit to talk about. The first story that we have is kind of a connection story, because I believe 2 weeks ago you guys talked about the NX controller, right? The supposed NX controller.
Right.
Really quick, I'm just going to interject on this. My thoughts on the NX controller, I really hope that isn't the NX controller, and the reason I really hope it isn't is because I really don't want Nintendo going down the gimmick road. All right? They really do need to kind of... Look, I have nothing against the Wii or the Wii U, but the last two controllers, the last two consoles have been very gimmicky. And I don't want a gimmicky controller or a gimmick around this console. I want them to bring things up to speed. So there you go. That's my opinion. Sorry if you guys were all excited. At the most, I thought it was basically a digital overlay of an Atari controller. Because that's what it looked like to me. But this is kind of a connection story to the NX controller. I can already feel my panel wanting to murder me. This is kind of a connection story. It happened literally the week after the NX controller pictures debuted, which was Nintendo couldn't make up its mind whether or not Wii U production was going to end at the end of the year. And the reason that we know this is because we actually literally had in our Facebook thread that we try and share stories together, we had Alex and Aldo arguing because one story was they were going to end it. One is, no, they deny it. They're not going to end it. And then Aldo would put up, oh, wait, no, they are going to end it at the end of the year. And then Alex would put up, no, they're denying it. It's not going to happen. I wish I could tell you this is over, but it really isn't because I'm still waiting for updates from official Nintendo execs, not Nintendo of America execs. I'm waiting for Nintendo of Japan at this point. So, at this point, I'm going to assume that Wii U production is not going to end until E3 tells me otherwise. Until then, though, I'm going to open this up to the panel. First of all, to one of the people that was part of the argument in general. I mean, what had to have been going through your mind, Alex, as you and Aldo were kind of hashing this out on the stories that were coming out, either confirming or denying that this was happening?
Well, it was a little scary at first. I mean, we all know the Wii U hasn't been doing splendid, even though it's generally not Nintendo's nature to abandon a console even when it's performing poorly. It's not like it hasn't happened either. We saw this with the Virtual Boy. We saw them abandon the N64 double disc system, and they've abandoned many projects. I mean, I think one of them led to the PlayStation, for crying out loud. Yeah, so it's not like Nintendo has never abandoned projects, and the fact that this story essentially came from Nikkei, which is a very reputable business site in Japan. It's like their stock exchange. Romney can probably correct me if I'm wrong there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd have to look into that a little bit, but...
Right, and so, and Nikkei's also had a pretty solid solid track record when it comes to reporting on Nintendo information and Nintendo rumors. So I was like, wow, already the Nintendo Wii U's abandoned, and I'm like, well, maybe it's a good thing I haven't bought mine yet. But then, of course, counter reports have started coming out. According to Nintendo replied to the Nikkei reports, and the last story that I got, which was dated from March 23rd, that they're still continuing on through the next fiscal year. Still, I'm kind of waiting to see what E3 is going to bring to the table when it comes to NX and see what might come out of it.
That really is going to make or break this story, because I'm still believing what I've said. I do not think that we're going to get an NX release date. I do not think we're going to get definitive details as far as like all of its hardware specs. We're not going to get that. I believe that this is going to be one of those things where we'll get a piece of it this year, get people used to the idea, maybe even hyped on it, and then next year we'll get more release details. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, the NX does start coming out this year, which a lot of people have been arguing with me about via messaging, saying that I'm full of crap, and that's going to happen because Nintendo doesn't have a choice. They do. They're not going to make that choice. Because as far as Nintendo is concerned, they're not in trouble. I mean, I hate to tell you this, guys, but as far as Nintendo is ever concerned, they're not in trouble. So they're not going to rush things because they're in trouble.
Yeah, that's what got them in trouble in the first place. They're not going to repeat that same mistake.
Look, I love Nintendo. We all love Nintendo, but there's one thing that we all don't want to, or we can't deny, is that Nintendo's got a bit of an ego, and that's not going anywhere. And so at this point, that's why this story is all the more silly, because if they are saying that they're ending the Wii U production, that pretty much confirms the NX is coming out this year. And at that point, they would have to acknowledge that they're in trouble, and they'll never do that. So at that point, I'm still going along the lines of, no, it's probably going to be like in the next 2 years that Wii U production will end. If anything, we'll probably get a big bundle like we did last year with the Smash Brothers Splatoon bundle, and it'll be with something a little bit more recent. I have heard talk about a Mario Maker, like a full Mario bundle with Mario Maker, Mario 3D World, and all that. Romney, your thoughts on the kerfuffle that came out of Nintendo not last week, but the week before?
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of with you. I don't think they're going to end it this year, mainly just because it doesn't make any good business sense. I mean, yeah, it could be argued that the Wii U itself was kind of rushed out, and a lot of what hurt the Wii U, aside from some of the rush technology, was more or less how it was marketed, because I know the common thing is that people thought it was just an accessory and not a new console, so there was that. And the whole anti-YouTube stance has come back to bite Nintendo in the butt several times. And so it just wouldn't make any financial sense for them to just end production at the end of the year, because there's still a lot of games on the way. Not to mention they're still trying to build that rapport with third parties. And then suddenly, oh yeah, we're going to stop making these consoles. And you have all these third parties. They're like,
yeah.
What the hell?
Especially that, because we still keep getting promises of, oh my gosh, we have so many third-party things that are coming down the pike, and we still haven't seen them. We've seen a few third parties develop stuff for the Wii U, but not to the droves that they were saying that we were going to get.
Yeah, and specifically, and the key thing is that you've got some people trying to make some new stuff and not just ports, because that's also been the big thing, is that, oh yeah, we've got third-party stuff where it's just ports of games that are already old, Mass Effect, Deus Ex, Assassin's Creed.
That's another thing, too, that's also been kind of bugging me with Nintendo, is that they're also kind of guilty of this. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the fact that Wind Waker is available for Wii U on HD, but Twilight Princess kind of raised my eyebrow a little bit, because we're still waiting on Zelda Wii U, and really that's the main reason why I don't think we're going to get Wii U production anytime soon, because they would have to formally announce that Zelda Wii U is now Zelda NX, and that means that it's guaranteed another year before we see that game again. And there is going to be a backlash. And I do believe that there's going to be a backlash not just from U.S. fans, but from Japanese fans, too.
Yeah,
because it's been a long time since we got our last Zelda console game.
Yeah, and plus one other thing that, I mean, yeah, there may not be a lot in terms of, like, retail games, but the Wii U has actually become a pretty good source for a lot of indie games, a lot of digital games.
Yep.
And so that's something I would kind of consider a saving grace for the Wii U, is that if you've been wanting to try a lot of indie games like Guacamelee or The Fall or Ollie Ollie,
Shovel Knight.
Yeah, Shovel Knight. It's a good console for a lot of these indie games. I mean, granted, if they cultivated the relationship with indie devs a little bit better, they could kind of try going the powerhouse, saying, "Hey, we have all these indie games here. You can try."
Yeah, you really could. You could drive it as an indie gaming machine. I mean, you really could.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there really, unfortunately, isn't a whole lot to add to this story aside from it makes Nintendo look kind of arguing with itself, roughly, on whether or not they are going to actually end production on the Wii U. So right now, I think we're kind of all saying the same thing. It really is more likely Wii U production isn't ending this year.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, I think Alex said by next year. I'm going to say it's 2 years.
And my prediction, well, I don't know. I'd say probably up to at the soonest, I'd say 3. And
yeah.
And I think really another thing to consider, just in terms of Japanese business politics, I mean, yeah, we've got a new CEO, Kimishima, but keep in mind that Iwata worked on the Wii U, and Kimishima is well aware of the legacy Iwata left, and just given kind of the structure of a Japanese business...
Oh, he's more than aware. He's being reminded of it right now.
Yeah, and all the more reason if he just says, oh yeah, if I'm just going to cancel this outright because it's obviously not working, that would be a PR nightmare for Nintendo of Japan, because it's kind of like when Nixon took off the name Kennedy off of the boats that went to retrieve the astronauts. It would be the equivalent of that. And so it just, one, it doesn't make business sense, and two, just culturally, I don't see a businessman like Kimishima making that kind of decision without having, there would have to be major justification. Like you said, this would have to come from a formal announcement from Nintendo.
Yeah.
And just given how short of the lifespan the console has had to date, it just doesn't make any sense to just suddenly say, okay, it's obviously not working. I mean, the Virtual Boy, a lot of people like to bring up, oh yeah, Virtual Boy rushed out. But the thing is, when you look at a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, Nintendo knew it was going to fail. It was just literally something they could throw out while they were working on the N64 just to tide people over. They knew it was going to tank, and that's why they tried to be as cheap as possible with it.
Well, and here's the thing, too. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, NX is coming out this year. You really think that they're going to announce the NX via Nintendo Direct? This is actually one of those few things that they would actually bring a team to E3 to unveil the NX. That would be a major opportunity for them, especially amongst the gaming outlets, because then they could be the first to say, we have tested out the NX kit that they had there. And I'm sorry, but every kit has had major developers there. I mean, Iwata has been there. Miyamoto, I think, has been there for the last couple of consoles to talk about it. So at that point, I think we've pretty much already confirmed that E3 is getting a Nintendo Direct. They're not getting a live showing there. That pretty much is your anchor. We're not getting NX this year.
Yeah, and not to mention that they just barely launched My Nintendo, which does a lot of the same Club Nintendo stuff, except it's linked specifically to digital purchases.
Yeah.
And it's just the people who think they're canceling it. Would they really consider canceling it after just barely rolling out a service that encourages you to purchase digital versions of games to get those Nintendo rewards? That's another thing that, they wouldn't. I mean, as much as I love my 3DS, digital sales on a 3DS alone aren't going to cut it because of the file size.
Expand it from there. There's been a huge initiative for the Wii U this year. I mean, we have Star Fox Zero, we have Star Fox Guard. We had a lot of good Wii U games, I believe, that were announced over the Nintendo Directs. The games that are coming to my mind were mostly handheld ones. And by the way, apparently we need to be murdered, Romney, because we didn't mention Dragon Warrior 7 in that announcement.
Yeah.
But there isn't, Kimishima... I'm going to murder his name for the first couple of times I say it. Kimishima has come out and said there's full initiatives for both 3DS and Wii U. So what's he going to do in the middle of summer? Say, oh, no, I lied. There's no initiative for it. That doesn't make business sense for him.
Yeah, I mean, especially when they're also trying to get people to adapt. I'm pulling out my phone here. That's why I keep looking down at my hand. is because they're also trying to get people to go on Miitomo as well. And that's
Yeah.
another thing that if they were to say, oh yeah, we're going to cancel it, basically
Well,
canceling...
Miitomo links up with the Wii U too, doesn't it?
Well, sort of. It links up if you have a Nintendo account. If you have a Nintendo
Yeah.
Network ID,
That's
it'll
what I
link up across the systems. But keep in mind, a lot of people think, oh yeah, but it's failing. But it would just be a PR nightmare if they straight up said, yeah, we're canceling this at the end of the year. And
It'd
so,
already be a black mark on Kimishima's Stardust precedent.
Mhm.
So, with that, let's go ahead and move on into the next major problem that happened over the last couple of weeks. So not only did Nintendo kind of have debacles, but, well, Sony kind of did too. Because I believe, I don't think this has gotten an official release date, aside from that it's going to come out before the VR headset, but we are apparently going to get PlayStation 4.5. I'm sorry, I didn't get the proper reaction from you two. Let me go ahead and say that again. We're going to get PlayStation 4.5.
So it's a slightly more souped up and more expensive PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
Does it mean it's just going to come with like special DVD features or something?
The only thing you need to care about, Romney, is that it's going to be another $400 purchase. Because you're totally wanting to do that, right?
Yeah, although to be fair, I'm looking at the official name they seem to be giving it, because the headline of the article is a little bit misleading.
Yeah.
Because looking in the article, what they're officially dubbing it is the PlayStation 4K.
Yes. And here's the thing. I'm giving it crap a little bit, but they actually are like saying that this is going to be a slightly more powerful PlayStation 4. I believe they actually did say that they were going to try and aim for higher hard drive specs and higher graphic capabilities.
Yeah, specifically for 4K resolution, thus the 4K.
Yes. Now, people actually did send me messages that I should hate this, and I'm going to bring this up. Does this mean we're going to get PlayStation 4.5 games? No, people. That's not what they're trying to do here. If I may go off on a tangent for a second, what this actually reminded me of when I read the specs was, does anybody, like, Alex, you don't get to raise your hand because I've actually told you this story. But, Romney, do you by chance remember the PSX when it was announced?
Not really. Again, I sided with Nintendo during the console wars, so...
So, when the PlayStation 2 was at its hottest at that point, like this was when PlayStation 2 and Xbox were technically battling it out, and Xbox was kind of winning because Xbox was the first console that had a hard drive built into it, and that was one of the biggest complaints that was against Sony, is they were still running off of memory cards. Same thing with Nintendo at the time. So their answer to it, this never, I don't think, officially came out, at least on U.S. shores. I think it did come out for a limited supply in Japanese shores. They came out with the PSX, which was basically a PS2 with a hard drive. Okay, so you actually would be able to store your files on a hard drive, but as an added bonus, it had DVR capabilities. So you not only would get a hard drive, but you technically could record your favorite TV shows. Keep in mind, this was back in the days when DVRs was specifically services at that point. Like, we weren't having, like, built-in DVRs that you could just buy wherever. Okay?
Yeah.
This was back in the days of TiVo. Okay? Now, I will admit, when I saw that, I bought into the hype. Because, first of all, it was a hard drive. And I was an avid PlayStation 2 gamer. And I had, like, I've got them somewhere around. I've got like 2 or 3 memory cards. It's the most memory cards I've ever owned for a PlayStation console. So I had that, and I love the fact of a hard drive because that was the one thing I thought Microsoft had done right in this console generation that nobody had, which was being able to store things on a fixed hard drive and not have to worry about how many blocks I had on a dang memory card. Because, like, PlayStation was not that bad with it. Nintendo was a big offender on that one, as far as I'm concerned. So,
what you're describing to me just reminds me of that time where Nintendo, and they only released this in China, where they basically tried releasing a GameCube that was also a DVD player and a CD player. And it was so expensive. It only sold in China, but literally the cost of, and it was called the IQ, the Panasonic IQ, and they basically, people did the math, and the price you had to pay for an IQ in China, you could just buy a CD player, a DVD player, and a GameCube all separately and still save money.
Yeah, or another one that actually just barely came to me. You might have the PlayStation era would not be too far away for you, Romney. So
not too far.
So do you remember the PS1 remodel they did that came with a monitor to it?
I remember wanting one so bad when I saw it in stores because.
But yeah, and it's one of those things where like they actually did have a bundle that you could buy the monitor attached to it. But originally, like they only did that to extend the PlayStation's lifespan while they were working on the PS2. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I mean, Sony's done gimmicks, people. Sony's done plenty of them, and that's unfortunately kind of what this PS4K looks like, which is kind of a sad thing because first of all, they're even admitting it. They're putting this thing out before their VR headset because they're wanting to push that. In fact, I'm really worried about this E3, people, because I think this is going to be the year where we get the gimmick. And for the 7th generation, that was motion controls. So we had that 1 year where we had nothing but Kinect and Move and motion games. Yeah. This year, it's going to be HoloLens and the PlayStation VR headset. And look, Nintendo, if you want to sit there and lie to my face and say you don't have a VR headset, I can already tell you have something in development.
Yeah, but I'm going to play the optimist here because while motion controls are being held back by the fact that the lack of haptic feedback breaks the immersion, VR technology has actually gotten pretty sophisticated. So of any of the two gimmicks, VR would probably be the stronger horse to bet on because we actually do. I mean, I even have a frickin' Google Cardboard right here. Messing everything in my.
But that's not the problem that I have. Is that it's kind of like so that E3 that I'm talking about, where we got nothing but Kinect, nothing but Move. It was basically those two were shoved down our throats, and there really weren't any other games to announce aside from Kinect and Move. I would dare say Sony was probably the least worst offender there, but that same year they were also toting Sony 3D TVs, and so they wanted to tote like a bunch of games with 3D functionality. And so at that point, that's the worry that I have. I'm actually kind of interested in what the HoloLens has as far as capabilities. I'm interested in the Sony headset, but I don't want these things shoved down my throat. I want to have games that I can be excited for that don't require a VR headset.
Well, yeah,
that's my problem.
Well, yeah, I understand that. I'm just thinking that I think people have learned the lesson, which is why you see Sony pushing their own thing, and especially what changed it was the Oculus. And so I understand the concern of like forcing the gimmick and like making it required, but I can kind of see why Sony is wanting to rush out the more powerful system because given the kind of quality they're hoping to achieve, because keep in mind, Google Cardboard uses your smartphone, and it's very rudimentary at best, but something like the Oculus Rift or the PlayStation VR or the HoloLens take a lot of processing power. I mean, when I've used my phone for VR, by the time I'm done, I could use the thing to cook eggs.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem with it. The other thing that also kind of worries me about this is that this is also coming off, I think it was 3 weeks prior to this, that Sony had to announce, I believe it's Japan only, but they discontinued PlayStation TV development. And so at that point, it just looks like Sony is pulling crap out of their butts to detract from the PlayStation TV announcement, especially since Alex can attest to this. We got that shoved down our throat pretty hard last year. Or not last year, the year before that, I think.
Yeah. Of course, the PlayStation TV, that was just a desperate attempt to try to save what was left of the Vita, because that's all it really is a glorified Vita.
Yeah, it really was.
But to get back to the main point, I see this kind of similar to how people saw the new Nintendo 3DS. Granted, it's not like you're going to see like a third joystick. One, how would you even control it? And people, please do not think too hard on that. But point being,
they already are.
Yeah, point being, I can see because Sony's offered like different systems with different specs before. They did the same thing with the PlayStation 3, where they have different memory sizes, different processing power. Some of those caught fire very easily, but I don't really see this as anything new from Sony. It's just a slightly more powerful PlayStation 4.
Yeah, pretty much. Alex, your thoughts on PlayStation 4K?
Well, 4K itself it's going to be a pointless endeavor here because, one, there's going to be very few games already that support it, and it'll be mostly limited to whatever comes out in the future, if at all. I mean, I don't see many games truly rendering themselves in native 4K. That seems a little too ambitious right now for this industry with all the problems it has.
You can tell that like Sony will make it an initiative to support it.
In a sense, they already have. I mean, that's what the Okami HD port does. Is that it's like renders at 4K and then it's downsampled to 1080. That's
the one thing that you can guarantee is like for example, the Ratchet and Clank reboot will support 4K. Uncharted 4 will support 4K.
Square's going to jump on that. We all know that.
I think it's a little soon for the newer Uncharted 4. I think it's a little too.
But there will be a 4K version. That's the thing.
Yeah, but it's going to be mostly an upscale is what I'm thinking of, and fans are going to expect it to be true native resolution 4K, or they're going to bitch about it. The only reason I can see this working in Sony's favor, not totally blowing up in their face like PSX, is mostly because, well, the PS4 has already kind of stumbled out of the gate. It hasn't had the strongest library, so there's probably still been a fair amount of people holding off on buying their PS4s until more becomes available. So, well, here's now a more ample opportunity.
There's tons of people. In fact, I would dare say you're one of them, Alex, that is still holding off until PlayStation 4 gets more of a library for it. So, I mean, at this point, like on the panel, I guess me and Aldo would be considered the early adopters because we actually do have PS4s and we're doing reviews for them. But the general public is still trying to be sold on this. I know a lot of people who are going to go out and buy it because of Uncharted 4, and also one in particular that's going to wait until Rise of the Tomb Raider hits PS4 and then get both Uncharted 4 and Rise of the Tomb Raider. But that's the thing. People are still waiting for games on this, so this is just basically another console advertisement. You know, go get our console that you haven't done yet. But to answer Romney's earlier question, I think Square Enix actually already has jumped on the bandwagon. I think that came out with the 15 announcement.
Yeah, or more accurately,
support 4K.
Yeah. They've been making a lot of announcements regarding 15, so they're all starting to kind of bleed together at this point.
All I know is September 30th, and yes, I'm going to be reviewing it. So
yeah, it's just because I've also been saying, oh yeah, they've made an anime and they're doing a feature film and
yeah, don't overdo it, people. Don't overdo it. This is the make or break Final Fantasy, people.
Again, there's like, okay, we need more Aerith cosplayers. We need more Aerith cosplayers to put on the altar.
Yeah, pretty much. In fact, I'm kind of surprised that she's not a big angel on the altar saying dilly-dally, shilly-shally. Let's move on, because there really isn't a whole lot to get into this. I have a feeling we'll get more on this PlayStation 4K at E3, because they're going to want people to buy it. But the next story that we have to talk about, I'm not going to lie, it actually pissed me off for a good portion of the week. And the reason that it pissed me off was simply this. If you're a gamer that has a legitimate complaint with a gaming company, I don't have a problem with that. When you're a random social justice warrior on the internet that has openly, or that in some cases has openly admitted that you've never bought a product from this company, and yet you're complaining about an image, shut up. I believe that you have every right to speak your mind. But as far as I am concerned, when you don't know anything about what you're talking about, shut up.
Yeah, I'm actually, there's a Tumblr image I actually saw today that summarizes this whole thing perfectly. I'm gonna dig it up because it is quite appropriate.
In fact, I was very appreciative later in the week that Alex found a Total Biscuit video on this. So first of all, The company that we are talking about is the company that I get referenced to all the time, which is my favorite company, Blizzard Entertainment. They recently just, I believe it was on Monday, they had a social justice warrior come out along with Blizzard fans regarding a portrait of, regarding the most recent IP that they're working on to release next month, Overwatch. And they just barely released Recall, which is another CG movie to kind of help tell the story of the characters. By the way, I know Alex has watched it. Did you by chance watch it, Romney? Watch Recall?
Not really. I haven't. Really, I'm not a big Blizzard fan, so I haven't really followed a lot of it, and I don't play a lot of PC games either. So. Yeah.
Well, this is a console game, but I don't think you have the console. So.
Nope.
Because I don't think it's coming out for PS3 or 360.
Yeah. So unless they decide to port it to 3DS for some strange reason, I doubt it.
But so they've been pumping advertisement pretty well, because we had Recall come out for Xbox.com earlier last week. And then this week, on April 3rd, PlayStation is going to get their unveiling movie. So the Blizzard likes to stay even with people. They like to play the middle guy and try to get along with people. But it just so happens that I believe this is on their website, a portrait image of the kind of the trademark character of Overwatch, which is Lena Oxton, a.k.a. Tracer. This image was put up as over-the-shoulder 75 that you could get of Tracer. Now, I'm going to come out and say I didn't have a problem with this image whatsoever, especially considering the character itself. She is a very playful character, and also a very badass character, and so this pose reflects that. And I had no problem with the visual direction that they tried to go with this. However, people did. And so Blizzard, in their infinite wisdom, listened to the people, more specifically the people who, again, never have purchased a Blizzard product whatsoever, and removed the image. Now, I'm not going to go against Blizzard and say that they were wrong to do that. You know what? They are completely in the right for doing so. Tracer is their property. Yes, Tracer is their intellectual property, and they can do with that image whatever the hell they want. I'm not pissed off at that concept. There are two things that I am simply pissed off about this whole affair, and frankly, the internet has done a better job of addressing this than I am doing right now. Simply put, if you've never bought a product, why do you care now? Over a stupid little butt pose. And by the way, can I actually just point out that to all of the social justice warriors that came out, Overwatch is one of the biggest examples of fighting this stereotype that Blizzard has in their arsenal right now. They have a burly Russian woman with short pink hair as one of the leading tank characters in it. And yet, those social justice warriors conveniently missed that plot point. I'm a little frustrated.
Yeah, I don't really have any comments other than the image I just dug up, because it just summarizes my thoughts on the whole thing perfectly.
And that is here.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to say on the subject, because... Yeah.
No, it's perfect as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and to kind of explain to the people listening, it's a webcomic by Gaff Comics called Spot the Useful Feminist. And it's a valid point because of all the actual problems in regards to the treatment of women in the world, this is what you focus on. This is the source of all evil that you're dealing with. This, not, female genital mutilation, not
Romney,
this. Yeah, point being, it's just, that's what you're getting upset about?
That would be a more offending portrait, people, is Widowmaker. And you know what? Being sexy is part of her character. And by the way, speaking of burly Russian woman, that is Zarya. That is an example of Blizzard actually stepping outside of those usual norms that I still get to hear the occasional panelist at BlizzCon scream at them that they're not doing. But I can already cite to you at least 10 examples of times that they actually are doing it. Here's another example of maybe another character that is a little bit more thin for form, but actually has backstory to it. Unlike, say, I don't know, I could bring up Dead or Alive or something like that where there's very little backstory to the characters. At least these actually have the backstory to them. This would be another offender, which would be, I can't remember her name right off the top of my head, where she drives a mech 80% of the time. This would be more of an offending image than Tracer. Let's see. Where's the other? Here's another example of a burly woman in the Blizzard universe.
Yeah. Point being, of all the things, and this is, again, I identify as a feminist. Let me make that clear. I believe in that women do need to be treated better. I believe equal rights, equal opportunities, all of that. But the reason I get upset is because I'm just like, this is what you get upset over, not the, again, female genital mutilation, the 400 Nigerian girls kidnapped by Boko Haram. There's so many other things you could be focusing your attention, but this? A simple image? Really?
A simple image of a spunky character.
That's what gets people upset. But then again, this is the internet. They'll get upset over the tiniest little thing. It's like, the Joker has it right. The Joker had it right in The Dark Knight Rises, where, like, thousands of people die that are in another country. No one cares. One famous celebrity dies, the whole world goes nuts.
Second thing that I'm also going to bring up on this that actually pissed me off, because this wasn't just social justice warriors and feminists coming out and saying, oh, evil Blizzard. The second problem that I had with this was you actually had Blizzard fans who were making very familiar arguments with that of retake Mass Effect. I put this in the Gaijin Goomba video, so you guys can go back to my comment in his thread. But it's very simple. You paid $60 for a game. Good for you. Does that mean you're part of the art team? No. Does that mean you're part of the gameplay team? No. Does that mean you're part of the dev team? Period. Absolutely not. You don't get jack say. And to all of those who actually scream out and say, I paid my $60, I get to say whatever I want, and you evil Blizzard developers will take down this character because I don't like it. You don't get that say. The game director does. The art director does. The CEO does. That's who gets that say, not the person who bought the $100 collector's edition. And if that's why you bought the $100 collector's edition, might I suggest you change your spending habits. Yeah. I am so sick and tired over the last few years of that argument being made. You paid the $60. Good for you. Even if you paid it on your Kickstarter, that does not mean you were part of the development team or the development process.
Unless you paid that particular perk. And even then, there's caveats.
There's caveats. You are not being brought into the studio for your feedback. If you were brought into a beta test, good for you. But your feedback has very little to do with the game's overall artistic direction. That is up to the game team, which Blizzard or BioWare or Bethesda have assembled in their due course. Stop getting on game devs for making those decisions and the way that they make them. Okay? I get that people were pissed off that you didn't get your own specific ending in Mass Effect, but I would point out again, if you wanted your specific ending, you were going to be waiting 15 years for that game. Because that's how long it would take to develop all 30 or 60 different endings of what you wanted. So I've gone on my soapbox long enough, but that is one of those things that, as gamers, we need to come together and realize this common sense fact. We've been paying $60 for games for years, and funniest thing, even in the 16-bit era, we were not involved in the development process. We were 10. So before we get into any other stuff, I've ranted plenty on this. I know that Romney has ranted on this. Alex, your thoughts on the Tracer situation?
Well, okay, somebody not particularly connected to Blizzard like you are, but I understand the frustration. We've seen this a little too much over the last couple of years, and this is why people are getting so riled up about it. You can maybe... and I'm talking about the people who are angry that Blizzard caved more so than the people who are angry about, oh, there's a woman who's a little sexy, call the cops, so gee. But Romney's absolutely right with the point with the Tumblr post that he found with the picture. There are so many better issues to worry about for the rights of women and the quality of life for women out there than what characters are being portrayed in a video game. And my philosophy is that, you can make a character that can be sexy and interesting, not just a one-dimensional sex object when it comes to women in fiction here. And adding on to kind of what Romney was saying as well, just, I read this editorial piece at Forbes last night. I forgot I was going to post it to our Geek News thread. I completely forgot, actually. And it's the editorial in brief said, it's time to defend real women and stop worrying about virtual women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when Adam, when you were sharing the screen share, I noticed the related story of the Nintendo representative who was harassed and was fired. Her reasons for being fired was apparently she was moonlighting with a second job. That's a different issue there, but that's the person. But the editorialist made that point, and it's like, why are we talking about her? Why are we all getting on this issue here about this, character with a friggin' butt pose? Who really gives a shit? It's stupid, and I guess I can see why Blizzard would cave. I can see why a lot of these companies unfortunately cave to the pressure.
Brass tacks. They caved because this game is coming out in a month, and they don't want bad press.
Yeah, they don't want bad press, and I think back to the Simpsons episode where Homer gets accused of sexual harassment, and protesters camp outside his house, and the media follows him around. They don't want that. That's what happens in this day and age. Protesters camp outside your we saw this with Occupy Wall Street years ago. People who really want to, who have nothing better to do, will protest and camp outside your workplace and make life a living pain in the ass for you. So that's why these companies cave. Can you blame them?
Well, and especially in Blizzard's case, where they are really they have reason to worry about this property. This is the first new intellectual property they've come up with in 10 plus years. They have been known for 3 properties. They do not want this to fail. They can't have it fail, especially with the market that it's getting into. So I can understand their angle on this, and I'm not mad at Blizzard. I'm mad a little bit at Blizzard. I really don't think you should cave to people who haven't even bought your product. But at that point, I can understand why they did it. It's still stupid, though, especially when there's Romney brought up that there are real-life issues that are going on, and you're worried about a pixelated ass. Pardon my French. Especially, and the other thing that gets on my case, especially irritates me, is there are literally characters that are exactly what you are claiming this image to be. I mean, I might be stepping out of line here, but to my knowledge, there is really no story with Ivy of Soul Calibur. There really isn't. And so at that point, that's an offending example. Blizzard busts their butt, along with BioWare, along with Bethesda, to make characters, especially female characters, that are intriguing and interesting. Yes, do they have the good curves? Occasionally, yes, they do. But that's what Overwatch is such a great property for Blizzard, because they get to expand past that.
Yeah, I'm going to interject a little bit. Ivy... I'm speaking as a Soul Calibur fan.
That's fine.
I mean, there's not much of an explanation for her outfit, but Namco at least puts the effort of making the character in and of herself interesting. Team Ninja is the best example of. They obviously don't care about story for their characters. Even, as someone who tried playing Dead or Alive and seeing
their creator for Dead or Alive just announced that with DOA 3 or DOA X3. So I mean that you're exactly right. They are the biggest offenders of this.
Mm-hmm.
And by their own omission. So at that point, that's what irritates me about that, is that I'm the guy who watches to see, are these just going to be, pardon my French, boobs attached to a body, or are they actually going to have character development, backstory that we're going to care about? In fact, one of the things that makes me laugh is that, Tracer is the offending one, but I brought up an image of her earlier. Let me bring her up again really quick. This is actually the focus story of the PlayStation devoted video. that's coming out on April 3rd. It's Widowmaker. And guys, she's a sexy French sniper. But at that point, Blizzard has made her the way she is, and I can't necessarily fault them for that, because for every one of falling into that stereotype, I can mention 5 others that aren't.
Yeah, the big problem here that a lot of people don't realize is that feminism, much like any philosophy, there are multiple schools of thought. Because there was the Tumblr that I often like to mention, the Spectacular Spider-Girl Tumblr, talks about how you've got 2 main schools of thought of feminism at play here. You've got sex positive and sex negative.
That got started with the offending cover, right? With
yeah.
Woman? Okay.
And that's pretty much where a lot of that kind of... That's really the big thing here, is that the sex-negative feminists are the ones that are being the most vocal at this point. And it's pretty much you have 2 schools of thought literally clashing here, and that seems to be the main problem that a lot of people aren't understanding, is that like any philosophy, there are many facets. There is nuance. That is something that even the Amazing Atheist has put it there, nuance is dead in today's age. People don't want to understand that there's a gray area to everything. They want black and white. They want an adversary.
Exactly. And so at that point, like, I don't know, this whole story just annoys the crap out of me, especially when I'm really trying to approach this not as a Blizzard fan. I really am, because I can speak as a Blizzard fan and say, look, when it comes to DOA, you're right. And when it comes to certain characters in Blizzard canon, yeah, you're absolutely right. But for every one that you have that is an offending character, there are 5 others that I can mention that have amazing backstory. And yes, they've got the widow figure, but they're actually characters that you legitimately care about.
Yeah, I mean, a good example, look at anime as well. I mean, for every very sleazy fan servicey anime, we then have the works of Go Nagai, or even some of the stuff that Hideaki Anno even puts out with what he puts his characters through in Evangelion, where it's just like, I mean, yeah, you can go this fan service route, but you can also have the fan service route, but still make sure to actually create compelling characters. The strong example that comes to my mind is Cutie Honey. Yeah, it's very obvious.
And that's a series that's made to be sexy. That's a series that's made to be sexy, and it still resonates. So at that point, I mean, Alex, you're one that can actually speak on this matter. How many empowered female characters have you come across? I would actually cite, I'm responsible for bringing up one to you last year with Lacus.
Lacus, yeah. Lacus, very, very cute, pretty sexy character, but very empowered female. She becomes a general. She leads a rebellion, essentially. Great character, I'm a avid fan of the Girls with Guns trilogy, Noir, Madlax, El Cazador de la Bruja, all very sexy girls, all little bits of fan service sprinkled in here, but at the same time, very strong female characters with very complex issues and very complex character development cycles that we see in these shows.
Yep, and it just annoys me when crap like this comes out, especially when it's obviously from a social justice warrior who does not understand the product, does not understand the company behind it, does not understand anything regarding their product at all.
I mean,
and on top of that, again, there are so many other issues in this world that we could be arguing about. Why are we arguing about a butt pose?
It's like 5 years ago, we all would have laughed this off as just silly right-wing nonsense from the peanut gallery at Fox News, but nowadays it's like media grabbing headlines here.
Yeah.
It's the internet. The news moves at like literally a mile per second now, and so...
Well, and here's the other thing, too. Do you want to know another thing that's really sad about this story? It did make those rounds. Somebody actually did bring to me... I think it was like CNN. This post made one of their headlines. That's bullcrap.
Yeah, I'm kind of just reminded of that reporter who, when there was like a news story about, it was either Kim Kardashian or Paris Hilton, where she just straight up said, "No, I'm not going to report this. We obviously have much more important news. Why the hell is this a story?" My favorite is when there was like a news about some rat belonging to one of the Kardashians. The reporter literally just got up and walked out of the studio saying, "This is not news. Why the hell are we covering this?"
It's times like these that, and I'm going to wrap the story up on this because I could literally rant on it for another 30 minutes to an hour, is I can go back to Lena Oxton, a.k.a. Tracer, and at least say that the world could use more heroes, not social justice warriors. Moving on!
Yeah, speaking of topics that we have no particular love for...
Well, I love this subject, but apparently David Hayter doesn't. So this actually just barely came to our attention via a GameSpot article. So people have actually wondered, like, since David Hayter got snubbed for the Phantom Pain, and it wasn't that he got snubbed, roughly. I mean, we've heard the story numerous times. He was directing a project, and he missed the call from the casting over at Konami.
Well,
and
from what I've heard, he never actually got the call. He actually had to go and find someone at the localization game.
Yeah, he had to talk to his contact in Konami and find out. But, I mean, he was off doing something else at the time, so it was understandable.
Yeah, he was directing his film Wolves. That's what he was doing. Yeah,
so at that point, he was not bitter that he did not get picked for the... Well, he was a little bitter that he didn't get picked for the Phantom Pain. That would be a little bit of a lie. But now, in an interview, we're finding out a little bit more from David Hayter that it wasn't that he necessarily hated working with Hideo Kojima or the Konami reps. He wasn't very fond of it, but like somebody actually did ask him, okay, would you... if Hideo approached you with his new Sony property, would you come back? And he's made it kind of clear that he doesn't have any particular love for Hideo Kojima. I guess the first couple of times that they met or that they actually spoke together, they butted heads a little bit, especially when it came to character decisions. So, I mean, I hate to burst everybody's bubble who would love to have him come back to do more Hideo Kojima stuff, but he, the tale that he actually kind of tells, I don't feel bad for David Hayter, and I wish him the best in his future endeavors. I didn't even know this. He had to re-audition for Snake. I don't know about 2, but for 3, he had to re-audition to play Naked Snake. He had to re-audition to play Old Snake in 4. And he had to re-audition to do the Peace Walker.
Mm-hmm.
And these were orders, it looks like, from Kojima.
Yeah, so, both Kojima and Konami, because he even mentions how they were initially trying to get Kurt Russell to be the voice of Naked Snake for Snake Eater, but it didn't go through. And it's not even just David Hayter. Quentin Flynn even's gone on record saying that he almost was replaced because he had to re-audition for Raiden for Guns of the Patriots.
No, and he's not the only case either. I've also heard of they brought in she's not the original voice, but the Twin Snakes Naomi Hunter, when she got brought in for Guns of the Patriots to play Naomi again, she had to do it. This is not an unfamiliar story. And while I love Hideo Kojima and I wish him well in the endeavors that he's got going on, now I don't feel so bad about David Hayter not being involved with Phantom Pain.
Mm-hmm.
As much as and here's the thing, I haven't. So spoiler here, I've been watching a playthrough of Phantom Pain because I've said it numerous times on the podcast. I suck at Metal Gear. I suck horribly. And so one of the things and I mentioned this to Romney off camera, is I'm a little annoyed that you hired on somebody like Kiefer Sutherland and you don't utilize him. At least from what I've seen, he doesn't have very much voice work in the game.
Yeah, but to be fair, that one is because they were going for more facial capture, which you do see a little bit more of in the Phantom Pain, but that's kind of neither here nor there at this point.
And for that, I would give that justification. However, it was being advertised he was going to be the new voice of Big Boss when Kiefer got announced. And so at that point, it is a little annoying to me to not hear him saying anything in the scenes that I've seen, or in what I've seen of Phantom Pain. So at that point, I gotta say I don't necessarily feel bad, especially like I don't ever want to condone like an actor to be in a bad situation. And it seems to me like when he was dealing with Konami in any way or Kojima in any way, he had friction. So the fact that we all love what Hayter was doing for us, I kind of want to give the guy a break because
Yeah.
friction on the set is never a good thing to deal with.
Yeah, and just given the kind of responses we're getting, it's not like he sounds particularly bitter. He's just kind of approaching this the way any actor would. It's very much a very business-minded response, like saying like, yeah, I'm not particularly compelled to work with this person again. And so that's kind of one thing that I can kind of respect him for, is that he's not like saying, oh, I'm bitter. It's just more like, I just don't see this as a good business decision. It's not something that I'm going to, like, be... I guess, like, if the contract is good enough, his agent will get a hold of him, but he basically says, like, I'm not... The way I'm kind of understanding is that if Kojima asks him and the contract is good, he'll do it, but he's not going to actively try to get involved with Kojima.
Yeah, so to kind of go into your thought there, Romney, he actually they do have a quote that kind of sums that up. In the interview, he did say, I don't have any ill will towards Kiefer Sutherland or anything like that. The whole thing could have been handled better and a little more respectfully, but I'm not going to cry about it. And he does go on later to say it is a little weird to hear somebody else playing Snake. You know, he thought he'd be playing the role forever, but again, he's not holding it against anybody. He's just being very honest about the fact he's not looking like he's not jumping out to go work for Kojima again.
Yeah, and plus, a lot of people tend to forget that he does other things. I mean, he's a screenwriter in Hollywood. He's been directing, screenwriting. I mean, a lot of people tend to forget he worked on the first X-Men movie. That's one thing that a lot of people don't remember.
First movie, I believe he was a writer on X2, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a writer. So yeah, he does other stuff. So it's not like that's his only job. It's like, no, he just has other stuff.
He's got director credits, producer credits, writer credits.
The guy gets around is the point we're trying to make.
And he's got a lot of extra credits too, like extras in movies. So at that point, I don't necessarily feel bad for him. I look forward to the projects that he has in the future.
I still need to see Wolves.
Alex, your thoughts on David Hayter's comments towards Hideo Kojima?
Not much I can really say here. You're right.
Not yet, anyway.
I mean, you're right. He's not coming out overly bitter. Maybe a tad salty, but he did have kind of an unprofessional, was given an unprofessional send-off. So I can't say I blame him for being a little bit salted here. I think he knows it's the way of the business, which is why he's not absolutely outright angry and crying foul here. But you're right. I think he could have had a little bit of a better treatment to at least be given a little more information and a better send-off than this. It's kind of a shame.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, too, that I just barely noticed. We haven't really approached on this matter. The reason that the listener that brought this to my attention was to see whether or not this would change our viewpoint on Kojima. And I gotta say, not really. I mean, here's the thing. People are going to have bad days on set, and especially with somebody like Kojima where they're very picky about the product that they're trying to deliver. It's hard to be mad at them for that, especially when it's that same selectivity that gets the product that we all know and love. Obviously, I'm not going to say Kojima was worried that David Hayter couldn't play Naked Snake and thus wanted Kurt Russell. I think it was just because he wanted Kurt Russell, and he thought that would be a better direction to go. I mean, there's a reason that in Metal Gear Solid 4, he's only playing Old Snake, he's not playing Big Boss, and there's a Big Boss character. So at that point, Kojima knows what he's going for, and so it's hard to fault him, at least in my perspective, for doing what he thinks is right.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's also easy to understand why other people would be, in turn, frustrated with Kojima because of some of the overambitious projects that he tries to do. I mean, I've heard some of the stuff with the Phantom Pain and how he'd have a composer compose like 20 tracks, and then he would like choose only one and then tell them to compose like 20 more. And that in and of itself can be kind of enraging, because as someone who's...
And Kojima's not the biggest offender in this regard. I mean, there are a lot of very well-known directors that have had those kinds of problems too. I don't know about Spielberg. I know Lucas had that problem a lot of the time.
And Kubrick, especially Kubrick.
Kubrick was a perfectionist on the set. That was just the bottom line. An obsessive-compulsive perfectionist.
Yeah,
so,
obsessive-compulsive...
people thought he was the devil to work for.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just as for The Shining alone, Shelley Duvall had to get therapy for the crap she went through for The Shining.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, Kojima's not a single offender here. There's a lot of people that have different quips. I've even heard Tarantino's got some weird ones. And occasionally...
James Cameron is quite a bit like that, too.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
James Cameron's got a list.
He's got a notorious temper.
But at the same time, it's also kind of why we love them, because it's that temper, it's that obsessive compulsiveness that delivers the product that they want to deliver. So it's hard to be mad at them for that. So does this change my opinion of Kojima? Not really. If any, it doesn't strengthen it, but it's nothing I haven't heard before.
Yeah.
Especially with game directors, I've heard plenty of weird quips.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, let's go ahead and move on into the next story here, which is at least a little bit more positive.
Well, depending on who you ask.
It's a 50-50 story, to say the least.
Yeah, it's more of a follow-up, really, because I remember we covered this last year, I think.
We covered it, but it wasn't finalized. And so, at this point, we are here to formally announce that Sega of America has formally acquired Atlus. Yes, Atlus. You know, people they've been working with for quite a while now.
Mm-hmm.
And Atlus, if you guys do not know what they are known for, well, then Romney should reach out of the internet and smack you, because one of their biggest series that they're known for is Shin Megami Tensei, a.k.a. Persona.
Oh, the AKA, that's a common misconception. It's just, you have Shin Megami Tensei, and then the various spin-offs. Persona is one of those spin-offs, but then you've also got Devil Summoner, Devil Survivor, you've also got...
I only bring up the AKA because a lot of people actually take Shin Megami Tensei and associate it completely with Persona.
Yeah, they do conflate the two, but, I mean, if you're a fan of Persona watching this, you haven't played the other Shin Megami Tensei games, well, give them a shot. I mean, Shin Megami Tensei 4 I consider as one of the greatest RPGs the 3DS has, so... But,
oh, yeah, and I mean, like, a lot of people know that particular series, but there are so many others that Atlus has under their banner. I mean, they have Odin Sphere. They had, I can't even believe I'm bringing this one up, but I have to. Catherine, that came out in 2011. That's under their banner.
Yeah, and a lot of people
they're a very proficient RPG maker.
Yeah, the best way to look at it is that Atlus is to video games kind of what Funimation is to anime, almost, where they go for kind of the niche markets. And
dude, I didn't even know this Dragon's Crown was theirs.
Yeah. Although a lot of people are wondering, oh yeah, they bought it out because they need more people, but apparently there's a little more detail about why there was the acquisition. Apparently, Atlus's former parent company, Index Corporation, was under suspicion of improper accounting, with former heads of the company being arrested in 2004.
Yeah.
And so the reason that Sega has acquired Atlus is because the people in charge of the parent company were basically being arrested for fraud.
Yeah. That would be a great way to jump into Sega's arms, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, it's part of a weird thing where they basically, as part of the bankruptcy proceedings, the company had to select a sponsor for someone to transition the company to as part of the bankruptcy proceedings, and, well, the company they chose just happened to be Sega.
Yeah, and so we've actually speculated on this before, and we'll go into this again, like our thoughts on the acquisition itself. Is this a bad idea, especially considering where Sega's at currently? I actually don't think it is, especially since Atlus does have that well-known reputation. Granted, they have a couple of bad games under their belt, guys. Most major developers do.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, they have enough long-standing series and also a long-standing reputation of being a good RPG maker that this is actually a good step for Sega if utilized properly.
Yeah, and it's not even just RPGs, but they've also the kind of the calculated risk takers, because one series that most other studios would have passed over that Atlus took up and published and is actually moderately successful, Trauma Center. I mean, if you had pitched that to Nintendo, they would have passed on it. If you would have pitched that, I mean, unless it was, no, if you pitched it to Peter Molyneux, he would have made it more complicated, but it's...
Ooh, he would have made it infinitely more complicated.
Yeah, but point being that Atlus has very much been the outliers, and I'm speaking as both fan of Shin Megami Tensei and Trauma Center, that Sega acquiring them, it makes sense. Fine, it makes sense from a business sense. Like, okay, Sega knows how to handle PR and other media. I mean, they know how to work with TV. They know how to work with comics. Games depends on who you ask. And with Atlas,
at the same time, though, the main thing to consider with this is that where Sega doesn't really have that active reputation to rely on as good game makers, being paired with Atlas actually helps them out a little bit, because not only does it allow for them to say, well, we're working with Atlas, and Atlas decided to work with us, so, I mean, that's a good thing. But not only that, and I've actually said this numerous times on Draken Shadow, I think here too, Alex might have to clarify this for me, this is a good opportunity for them because Sega has this vault of properties that now they can open up to Atlas and let them do their stuff. I mean, for example, Phantasy Star is one of the longest-standing Sega RPGs that they could honestly give to Atlas and see what they could do with it. Shining Force, there are tons of other properties that I could think of that aren't Sonic that could help kind of get Sega out of this rut that they're in, and Atlas could lead the way. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing for either company, because while they're doing this stuff for Sega, they're pumping out Persona. Because Persona 5 is coming out this year. I've heard there's I believe there's still a sequel to Odin Sphere coming out pretty soon. So you have that also. And there's still going to be the occasional just great ideas that come out of Atlas. Granted, there might be a couple of flops here and there too, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and get into this with the panel. Obviously, we know a little bit of Romney's viewpoint on it. You're not disappointed by this at all.
No, it just makes sense.
Alex, your thoughts on Atlas and the formal acquisition for them to work with Sega?
Well, I'd say you guys made me a little more optimistic than I went into this, just because Sega's been kind of not in the best of straits right now so much. I hope this does work out. I want to see some good properties come out, be it Revival of Old or something new. You know, you mentioned Phantasy Star. Well, perfect. I think the perfect launching point for Phantasy Star is go back to the, not necessarily the
Classic RPGs.
Yeah, classic RPGs, but not just like continue on with the franchise right away, but rather finally localize and release Phantasy Star 1 Generations, which was an upgraded remake of the first Phantasy Star game.
I don't think that you would bring an Atlas to do that, though.
They've done localization efforts before, so
they've done them here and there.
Why not? I say do it. Publish it under the Sega Atlas banner. There you go. It's at least it's a start, you know. Localization, I know it's by no means easy or cheap, but at least it's a starting point for Sega Atlas to start getting their feet wet.
That might be something good to do, like if they have a brand new Phantasy Star game that they're trying to advertise, is to try and bring these games
at least use it as a means to gauge the interest of making another Phantasy Star game outside the online series, obviously, but you know, going into the classic vein of the classic Phantasy Star quadrilogy.
I think really we should take online and dub it a dead project as far as that is concerned, because if it's not going to be a successful MMO, and from what I've been told, PSO2 is not successful by any of their projections, really we just need to go back to basics and try to redefine Phantasy Star before we look into any kind of MMO problem.
Yeah,
well, that's why I said not worrying about Phantasy Star Online right now, but starting with the Phantasy Star 1 and 2 remakes, by localizing those and bringing them out like they said they would years ago, but they haven't. They look pretty. They look like they've been a lot more simplified, so it's a little easier to play compared to the old 8 and 16-bit versions of them. So start with those, then finally make the Phantasy Star 3 remake like they said they were going to do, but they never did. Then remake 4, then make a Phantasy Star 5.
Yeah, or even alternately, they could even try.
I'd just say reboot it.
Yeah, like rebooting it, and I mean, it could go with like the classic RPG route, kind of like what Square did with Bravely Default, or they could even go a different route, make it more an action RPG, just kind of be with things like Star Ocean or the Tales series.
because I mean, it's not that I'm disagreeing with you, Alex. I think that remaking is fine, but at this point, I'm more looking towards breathing new life into these series that are considered, as far as any average fan is concerned, dead series. And so at that point, a great way to be able to do that would be to reboot the franchise, maybe tell a brand spanking new story, a whole new canon, a whole new lore, and start from there and see how well the fans take it. And if they like it, then they can say, well, we can reboot or we can remake these other games and see how you guys like that. But and the same thing that I would also say is, like, for properties like Shining Force, Altered Beast, there's tons of potential for Atlas to come in and be able to work their magic. I didn't even notice that they've done a lot of localization work. They've also done a lot of publishing work. I didn't even notice this, but Demon Souls is under their, I think it's under their publishing banner. That is the prerequisite to Dark Souls.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, they have that under their banner.
Well, yeah, and I know the Conception series, specifically the one we got, Conception 2, Children of the Seven Stars, that was something that wasn't even up for release in the U.S. until Atlas said, you know what, let's give this a chance, because obviously there's a market for it.
Yeah, there's tons of potential with this acquisition, and so I look forward to what Sega can do with this, as long as the partnership is maintained in a proper way. Like, am I immediately looking towards Sega saying, here Atlas, here's Sonic, see what you can do with it? No, I want them to work on something new.
That just put a weird picture in my head.
I could totally see Sega just saying, look, we're done with Sonic Team working on this. We need to give them a break. Here's a Sonic game. Work on it. And I don't want Atlas to do that. I want Atlas to be given a Volt property.
Well, yeah,
something that we haven't seen in years.
Well, yeah, and both companies have gone on record saying that even with this acquisition, they're still going to work moderately independently. They're not going to get in each other's ways. So Sega's not going to say, you know that Shin Megami Tensei game, maybe we don't really need to make those. They're going to say, oh no, you keep making those. You do your thing.
Yeah, that's the biggest emphasis here, because a lot of people were worried that this is the end of Shin Megami Tensei. No, it's not. They are still going to be independent companies. They're still going to be working on their own stuff, and that's all the better for Atlas. Because then at that point, they can still continue to push the bar and create their own individual IPs that work out.
Sega's in-house work can be 50-50 at times, but when they are just working as the publisher and they allow a good game company to do its stuff, then it really shows. We saw this with Tembo the Badass Elephant. Game Freak really delivered a quality game there.
Well, yeah. This would also be a perfect example for Sega to reacquire that know-how, to be able to show that they still have it by working with Atlas and being a good publisher for them.
Yeah, because I mean it worked out pretty well for the Guilty Gear series, because a lot of people think, oh yeah, it's because Ishiwasari didn't want to make a Guilty Gear game. No, it's because Sega owns Guilty Gear, because they bought the company that published it, and it was only until recently that they said, you know what, yeah, let's let them make another Guilty Gear game.
Yeah. So final thoughts on the story before we... This is actually the last tech story that we have tonight. The rest are going to be entertainment stories. Final thoughts on it before we move on?
I think we've said it all.
All right.
Yeah.
So the first story that we have that is entertainment-based, I'm, again, sorry that we do not have Aldo Gomez with us, because I remember we actually did have this conversation a while back, and he was one of the biggest proponents of it. So it's one of those things that's kind of sad. We actually are missing Aldo Gomez tonight, by the way, and we're not sure what's going on. I think he may have had some prior plans maybe that he let me know of, and I'm just not remembering them. So, but let's go ahead and get into the story. It's official. We were talking about it in speculation before, but Fooly Cooly Seasons 2 and 3 have been announced by Adult Swim. So if you guys have not seen the series Fooly Cooly, just wait a month. It'll come back to Adult Swim, because that's usually what happens. And I have a feeling it's going to get a run for a while before the Season 2 and 3 actually happen. So they have announced a partnership with animation studio Production IG, better known for Ghost in the Shell, to produce
and Attack on Titan.
And Attack on Titan, to produce Seasons 2 and 3 of Fooly Cooly. And I can already see the questions happening in the email. What is Fooly Cooly? You can't describe Fooly Cooly. Fooly Cooly is a way of life. Fooly Cooly is a random girl in a nurse's outfit hitting everything with a guitar. Anime, people.
Oh no, I like to say Fooly Cooly is a student film only done by professionals.
I'm sure that joke has been made. I just remember, like, I've seen Fully Cooley. I'm assuming Romney has. I'm pretty sure Alex hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I actually haven't seen it, so.
Yeah, there were occasional moments where they would go into comics and just say, you know, what is Fully Cooley? And even though it was kind of referred to as basically sexual slang, they would actually get very Zen-ist on it and just say, like Fully Cooley is not just a word. Fully Cooley is a way of life. Fully Cooley is a commitment. And so at that point, you are now more than welcome to enjoy 2 more seasons of nobody understanding what Fully Cooley actually is. I can already feel the people wanting to scream out and say, what is the plot of Fully Cooley? I can't explain the plot to you. Are you kidding me? I watched all the episodes. There is a plot. I don't know what it is. I don't think anybody does. Aldo might. I really wish we could get Aldo on the horn.
Seems like a show about nothing.
No, there actually is a plot. There are aliens involved, and then there is a Fox Mulder impersonation with ginormous eyebrows. In fact, that's the reason, Alex, you should watch Fully Cooley, is you need to see that character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, based on what has been described to me of Fully Cooley, because my sister watched it, and keep in mind, my sister is the oldest, and she screened a lot of the anime that came in the house, and she didn't let me watch it. From what she described to me, she basically said that it was like straight up out there, kind of equating it to basically the mental breakdown Shinji experiences in Evangelion, except instead of crippling depression, it's with schizophrenia. No, not schizophrenia. That's not the best choice.
And random alien monsters coming out of a kid's forehead.
Yeah, basically, it's more like instead of crippling depression, it's more like hallucinations and, well, not being sure what is real. I know there's an actual disorder. It's not schizophrenia. It's a different one.
Here's the thing, is like, you could be right, Romney, but there also is an alien involvement in the series. There is actually a sci-fi element to it. That's why it's so hard to describe. It really is.
Basically, it's a mindfuck. That's the best way we can do it. Fully Cooley is a mindfuck.
Yes, it is a ginormous mindfuck. Pardon my French. And by the way, Alex, there he is, in all of his eyebrowed glory.
Wow.
This is why you need to watch it.
All
In
right.
fact, one of the things that makes me laugh is there is actually an episode where one of the eyebrows falls off. It's almost like they were taped on or something. So I already can feel people like asking, you know, whether or not we're excited for Fully Cooley season 2 and 3. I have to be honest. I haven't watched Adult Swim in years, mainly because I am so sick and tired of their 15-minute cartoons. And I know that they changed it to the Toonami block again, and I think they're still running off of that. My viewpoint is very simple. Is it cool that it's coming back? Yes. I'm, however, worried because there was another series that I was really excited when I heard Adult Swim had acquired another season for it, and that was the Big O. And Big O Season 2 is not the best season in that series.
So I guess you would say Big O Season 2 was a big no?
Oh.
It was not only that, it was a big no. Big no, big no, big no! And here's the thing. Adult Swim actually acquired the rights and ordered more episodes to be made of Big O. And it didn't really work out for them. In fact, it kind of backfired because it's still considered to be the weaker of the 2 seasons. Granted, a lot of that was because of a change in animation team. So I can't remember the exact animation team that was involved, but Season 1 was a prominent company, and then Season 2 they brought in like a bunch of extra people who did extra cells for, I think it was Batman the Animated Series, like Season 4, and they did Big O Season 2. And look, that's not the problem that I have, people. The problem I have is the plot.
Yeah, it's kind of like with the extra 5 episodes of Saber Rider, where they hired a different animation studio, with most of it being an anime done by Studio Pierrot, and then they hired a Canadian animation studio to do those last 5 episodes, and yeah.
So at that point, I mean, I'm excited, and I will definitely check in to see if they can assemble a plot in Fooly Cooly, although I don't think they can, and I don't think they want to. I'm interested, but I'm also wary because I've seen Adult Swim do this before, and it didn't work out for them. Alex is probably the first person to go to here because he's the resident anime reviewer. Your thoughts on Adult Swim acquiring it and whether or not they should?
Well, first of all, to answer your question, looks like, I don't know, it looks like Sunrise still produced both series of the Big O. They probably had some extra cooperation
No.
now.
Adult Swim commissioned them to do it.
Yeah, but Sunrise was still the animation studio, so I think you're a little bit off point there by saying Big O had a slip in animation quality. Everything I'm reading says Sunrise animated both seasons, so...
Okay, well they didn't. Then if they did the plot for both seasons, they should be smacked upside the head.
They probably had a B squad do the second season based on what you're describing. It's because like maybe the first one had the A team of writers and then they had the B squad or something. Animation, like the animation industry is weird.
Yeah, they are. So, okay. As for Fooly Cooly, I don't know. I can't really get that excited about it. I guess okay. I don't see why there's enough material to warrant 2 more seasons, considering that it's already right now it doesn't say if these are going to be full-length episodes, if they're going to be short episodes, or maybe a case of 2 short back-to-back episodes, like 11 minutes apiece, whatever they do, which I kind of don't like.
Seasons 2 and 3 will each be new 6-episode seasons continuing the original series story.
Oh, okay. Because I thought it was strange that right off the bat we're getting 2 new seasons of a show that hasn't been out in 16 years, but I know Fooly Cooly is kind of a staple of anime fans, and, it's...
Given that we're getting remakes of Combatler V and remakes of... Toei alone has been doing a bunch of rehashes and remakes, so,
Cleaning the nostalgia, I guess you're right. A little surprised it's Production IG taking up the helm. I know they did co-produce the original, but I don't know. Fooly Cooly always, to me, struck more as a Gainax property because it feels more in their spirit of roguish filmmakers than Production IG, which is a lot more standard and by the book and more professional.
Yeah, it might be in their wheelhouse, but at the same time, now it's Production IG. I mean, again, I'm not disappointed by this concept. I just really this is the reason Cowboy Bebop is still in some kind of syndication on Adult Swim, and Fooly Cooly occasionally makes it, because I think the original's first season was probably no longer than like 6 to 8 episodes. And people have found entertainment from that for 16 years.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably other shows I'd want another season out of way more than Fooly Cooly, to be honest.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, at that point, this is where they're going. I mean, I would be more than happy to see a lot of series get, like, a season 2 that have been in syndication with Adult Swim for years. Unfortunately, none are really coming to mind.
Yeah, and although I do have to admit...
Big O was one of them.
Yeah, although I do have to admit, we might be seeing a bit of a return to a different way shows were done back in the day, because way back in, like, the 80s, a lot of shows were were American studios commissioning Japanese studios. Given that we've got people like Adult Swim, Netflix, Crunchyroll commissioning a lot of these anime studios for these new shows, we might be seeing almost a return to kind of getting some higher quality animated shows here in the United States. I mean, yeah, we still have stuff by Studio Mirror, who did Avatar, Korra, and soon the upcoming Voltron. And so that's definitely an indication I'm almost getting here. It's like, oh, American companies are starting to hire these anime studios again, which means, well, we may actually get something that looks good, but at the same time, we may also end up with a lot of crap, like we did back then.
It's true.
Yep. So, unfortunately, without Aldo, there really isn't a whole lot to add to this story. So, final thoughts on it before we move on, especially since we are getting a little strapped for time.
Nothing more.
I don't even have cable, so...
I will probably watch this when it hits some level of syndication, but am I actually going to pick up Adult Swim to watch it as it's new? Probably not. Not to say that I'm not the biggest fan of Fooly Cooly, so I would watch it just for a cheap laugh, but I mean, that would take some time. So funny story, like the first time I ever watched Fooly Cooly, and this is never how you should watch an anime. It never should. I had just come off of a knee surgery, and I was on pain meds. So keep that in mind, people. A series that already doesn't make sense, and my mind is playing tricks on me.
I can only imagine the dreams you were having that night.
Well,
I wish I could tell you!
Just hope that Production IG is not commissioned to do an anime version of Big Trouble in Little China, because I don't think you'd be able to handle that.
Had to bring that up, damn it. Oh, because that's exactly what happened. No, actually, now that I think about it, I do remember there being a giant iron in my dreams that week, and one of the plot points of Fooly Cooly is that the town is centered around a giant iron, and I'm talking like iron your clothes with iron. I remember that, but that's about it. So. With that, let's go ahead and the comments I'm gonna get this year or this episode. Let's go ahead and move on into the next story here, which is kind of a sad one, but I'm not entirely disappointed by it. Mainly because I'm never gonna frown on a person's decision, and this is obviously a decision made by Hans Zimmer, which is that he has officially decided to retire from at least doing composing superhero movies. Now, granted, guys, he has done a lot of superhero movies in his time.
Mm-hmm.
He did Batman v Superman recently. He's done Batman. He's done the whole Dark Knight trilogy, for crying out loud. He did Man of Steel. I know he's got a Marvel credit in there somewhere. I'm just not remembering it.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
No, I'm talking like a Marvel Cinematic Universe one.
I don't think he's done any MCU movies. He's just done The Amazing Spider-Man.
Really? Because wasn't he the one who composed the main Avengers theme, though? Let me look that up.
That was Alan Silvestri.
Yeah, that's Silvestri. Hans Zimmer, I'm double-checking it right now because...
To the internet!
Oh my gosh, he has Transformers Age of Extinction under him.
Yeah. Oh, I told you this before. Steve Jablonsky is one of Zimmer's proteges.
Yeah. Dark Knight, no. He doesn't actually have an MCU credit. He does have Amazing Spider-Man. He has Interstellar. But yeah, most of his superhero credits are for Dark Knight Trilogy, Man of Steel, and Batman v Superman. So yeah, that's a little odd, but well, not odd. I actually can totally believe that's the direction that he wants to go, especially since I do know that Hans Zimmer is one of those composers that always looks for ambitious projects. Obviously, he did Interstellar. He's done he did the Lone Ranger. He did the Johnny Depp Lone Ranger.
Yeah, because it's because he's also previously worked with Gore Verbinski on Pirates. That's why he was brought on for Lone Ranger. And as a nice little bit of trivia, if you want to play 6 Degrees of Batman, you've got Mask of the Phantasm, which he was a synthesist on.
Yep. Little known fact here. So he's been doing a lot of DC movies. And while it is sad to hear that he's officially retiring from superhero movies, I'm not disappointed, because that doesn't mean that he's officially retiring. It just means that, well, he's going to be in other films. And I'm not entirely against that concept, especially with a good composer like Hans Zimmer.
Mm-hmm.
So, Alex, you look like you're kind of disappointed by it.
A little bit. I mean, I understand why he's doing it, of course. He wants to do other projects, and it gets a little tiresome to keep working on one set of projects. I mean, you're right, Zimmer's got a ton of superhero movies under his belt. That's even more than, Danny Elfman, who had his share thanks to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies and a couple others, I think. Danny Elfman and Batman 89, and Batman Forever. So Zimmer's...
I think Elfman did some work on Batman Returns as well.
Yes,
yeah,
you did.
Batman Returns, Batman '89, and Spider-Man 1 and 2 as far as Elfman's resume goes.
It's just
So working on one set of films, one set of genre, it's the same whether you're a composer, a writer, a director, an actor. It gets a little tiresome, and I can understand Zimmer wanting to move on. I'll miss him, and I'll miss some of his unique sounds, but at the same time, he's got a horde of other composers under his belt that he's trained up to take in the reins. I mean, Batman v Superman also had work by Junkie XL, who can very well handle things from here, including that really badass Wonder Woman theme from Batman v Superman.
Oh, wow, I didn't even actually know this. So, one series that I've actually toted to you a couple of times, Alex, he has been the composer for, which is Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah, Kung Fu Panda. He does a lot of DreamWorks.
And he actually has like 3 projects still coming out this year. He has A Cure for Wellness, which is in post-production. He has Inferno, which is also in post-production. And a pre-production for 2017 called Dunkirk. So, guys, this is not his official retirement.
Well, yeah, and Dunkirk, that's another Chris Nolan film that's on the horizon, which is why he's doing the music, because that's a Chris Nolan project.
Yeah.
So, dude, he's even the composer for Chappie, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think this is going to be the end, although it is disappointing. I did like the scores that he was trying to put together for Amazing Spider-Man 2, for the Dark Knight trilogy, and it is sad to see him go. He's still going to be in so many other things that I'm not disappointed completely.
Well, yeah, and looking at some of the quotes he mentioned, just kind of how difficult it is to try to come up with something new every single time. He cites specifically between the Dark Knight trilogy and Batman v Superman having to come up, because, I mean, Dark Knight trilogy, there's a lot of reoccurring themes that he used, and that could be a very easy fallback. I mean, Uematsu did it with Final Fantasy, John Williams did it for a lot of, like, Star Wars and Indiana Jones, so it's very much, when you have the reoccurring things you can call back to, it frees things up a little bit, because it's just like, okay, that groundwork is done. But then when you're going from one series with one character with one set of themes to another film with the same character but having to do a whole new set of themes to fit with this new style, it can be a little bit of a challenge.
And making it different but also sounding similar is also a major problem. I mean, you brought up Uematsu. Uematsu, as much as I credit him for it, I mean, yeah, he did have brand new scores to do for each game, but each Final Fantasy game also had recurring songs that would come back, and he always had to make them evolve.
Yeah,
same thing can be said of Hans Zimmer. I mean, I love Batman Begins. That's probably my favorite theme amongst the Dark Knight trilogy, just for the nuance that he actually tried to put into those tracks. But I can understand the conflict that he had, where he had to make Batman Begins sound different from the Dark Knight.
Yeah, and even then, like, from Dark Knight to Batman v Superman is the biggest jump, because at least with Dark Knight, you can use some callbacks to the other themes you used in Batman Begins, because it's the same actor, it's in the same universe. But with Batman v Superman, you're establishing a new Batman with a new identity, and so you have to have the music kind of reflect that this is a new Batman with a new identity. It's not the same as the previous Batman we saw.
Or in the case of Man of Steel, having to define this brand new Superman compared to the Reeve Superman or even the Brandon Routh Superman. Mm-hmm. So at that point, let's give him a round of applause for the fact that he did it. But, also kind of wish him well in his future projects. I actually think, give him 5 or 6 years and he'll probably come back to a superhero property, but he's not going to do them actively. And I look forward to what he has up his sleeve next.
I love the fanfare he did for Amazing Spider-Man 2. That's really one of my favorite tracks out there. I love that theme so much.
So, we will miss you in the superhero scores, Hans Zimmer, but we look forward to seeing so much more from you in any of your other future endeavors. I've already, looking at his IMDb, I look forward to what he has in store for all of us. So let's go ahead and move on into the next story here.
Which is also DC related.
Which is also DC related, and also related to our favorite director.
Yay!
If you could not tell the hint of sarcasm that I had, well, I don't know what to tell you. That is Zak Snyder. And so we have two stories to talk about tonight, one of which is a Change.org petition that I actually agree with. I'm going to let that sink in for you people for a second. I agree with this one because it is to ask Warner Brothers to boot Zak Snyder off of Justice League. I agree with you. You're not going to get what you want at this point.
Yeah.
The film is grossing at least $500 million right now, worldwide, I think. It's not happening, people. He's the Justice League director. Get used to it.
Yeah.
Although, I'm calling out to you in the ether. I want you to remember that Superman does indeed wear blue, just not in a Zack Snyder film.
Yeah. Especially given what's going to happen when they bring him back with that weird black outfit. Ugh, I shudder. I shudder.
Yep, that's happening. So, thoughts on the Change.org petition? I mean, obviously, we all agree with this. Like, our review of, if you guys haven't seen it, it's up on Podomatic, it's up on YouTube. But one of the biggest themes that you heard throughout that entire review is Zach should not be in charge of the next team-up. He is going to be at this point, but he shouldn't be. And one of the main reasons that we cited was his divisive style really hurts this kind of a product, especially when we're supposed to have a team up. And, you know, in the case of Justice League, we have 5, 6 heroes teaming up together. And he can't even make 3 look interesting. Like, I'm now a week off that movie, and I actually can honestly say, aside from the fight with Doomsday, he really didn't make a team-up between the 3 heroes that interesting. Like, he didn't make it epic. He didn't make it compelling. He didn't make it like this is a must-have to happen in this universe. Instead, he kind of did the whole Justice League, the Justice League animated series route, which was, well, we hate each other, but we might as well team up. And that's disappointing to me. I want to be able to care that Batman and Superman are teaming up together to fight this threat, and that Wonder Woman is coming in to join them. And he kind of sucked at it.
Yep.
Somebody have a thought. I actually need a cough really bad.
It's just, we're just gonna kind of it would be us regurgitating all of the same things we said in the Batman v Superman review, and honestly, the Change.org petition is not the news that most worries me about the articles that you've linked us. No.
Now we got something even worse.
Much worse.
Shall we go ahead and get into it?
Do it.
So, yeah, Change.org, if you have a thought and you want to sign it, please do. I'm not going to sign it because it's not going to matter. Warner Brothers isn't going to care. But the one that should actually concern you is that Zach, oh dear Zachy boy, has been signed on to a Star Wars spin-off.
All the lightsabers are going to be brown, aren't they? Or black.
I think my comment said it best. I think we're finally going to acknowledge the gray side of the Force. Or even better, the brown side of the Force.
Yeah, it's just now I'm suddenly hearing the sudden raging voices of so many Extended Universe fans who do not like that joke.
No!
Yeah.
Do not want. But we're going to get, because he's the new Joss Whedon.
Well, to be fair, Zach is the kind of director that if he's reined in, he can make some decent films. But that's the thing. He needs to be reined in. And
we can only say with Disney he's going to get reined in.
Yeah, and that's the thing. With Disney, they're probably going to rein him in saying, you're going to have color and you're going to like it, Zach.
Yes, you gotta have color in a Star Wars movie. You can't make it all monochrome. And not every character needs to frown.
I'm not worried about that so much. I'm actually more worried about one simple concept. He has a real problem making real, legitimate heroes look like real, legitimate heroes. Zach loves his anti-heroes. Zach loves giving them horrible, tragic backstories that nobody gives a crap about. And that's my worry here. I do not want to hear about the sad, tragic backstory of Luke Skywalker. At least not from Zach. Other directors, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Well, how about the sad part is like the image that they put with this is him and Yoda. Just think about that. He's given a prequel movie given the life of Yoda. Man, that's going to be depressing as hell.
Indeed. But again, the key thing to remember with Star Wars as opposed to DC is that, well, all the story has to be approved by the story council that Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams are a part of. And so, this is something I even mentioned in my Monster Clash comparing the two versions of Dawn of the Dead with him directing the remake, is that when he's working with the right people, he can make something decent. And so, as worried as I am about his take on the Star Wars universe, he's probably going to be put under a lot more control this time around than DC. Because DC, I believe, Warner Brothers has given him too much lately. It was Disney's just like, yeah, we saw what you did with Batman v Superman. We're not going to let you. And I'm guessing by the facepalm, you just read the basic concept.
That's not necessarily all I read. So we've reported on this, and I'm going to bring it up because it's in the article. We've reported on the supposed origin story for Boba Fett. Did you read just supposedly who is widely rumored to be the director on it?
Oh.
That would be our buddy Josh Trank.
Oh,
otherwise known as the guy who screwed up the Fantastic Four.
In fairness, Fantastic Four had a lot of executive studio meddling. There's a lot of back and forth.
I don't care. Josh Trank was still responsible for a good portion of it. And yet now he's going to be responsible for Boba Fett. And I'm reading the concept of what Zak Snyder wants to do. There's talk about possibly giving him an origin tale for the Rebel Alliance.
Enough with the damn origin
about
story.
The history of the Jedi Order. Oh dear Lord, no!
It's enough with the origin stories. Period. We don't need an origin story.
No, you know what?
Origins.
No, Zach, you don't get in charge. You don't get to be in charge of the Jedi. No, you don't. Put the pen down. You get Sith. That's what you get. That's who you know how to write for. You're telling me that this guy's going to write one of the ideas here is that he is going to write the history of the Jedi Order? I'm out.
And
I'm out.
And I just worry that the pitch, the pitch is developing. It's based on Seven Samurai.
Effing out.
I'm right there with you because, look, I get it. George Lucas took a lot of cues from Kurosawa for Star Wars. I get it. But the thing... I'm sorry, but giving Zak Snyder the Seven Samurai sort of storyline for Star Wars just makes no sense. Because Kurosawa paid a lot of attention to the way he told the story visually. Zak Snyder does not. Again, I went on record. There's that one image of Batman v Superman that highlights the entire problem of his filmmaking style. And if you're wanting to adapt something like Seven Samurai, you have to take more care with your images. And just...
My problem is very simple. Zach does not know how to make good guys look like good guys. He really doesn't. And the Jedi are good guys. So at that point, really what you're going to get is every single member of the Jedi Order is going to have a tragic backstory. No. No, you know what? No. Zach, you don't get that. You don't get that right. You can write the Sith. I don't care. All Sith Lords, to some extent, have some kind of tragic backstory. Go nuts. The Jedi Order, this makes as much sense, people, as putting him in charge of The Legend of Zelda, which people have asked to do. No. No. There is one director that should never be in charge of that property, and that is Zak Snyder.
Well, there's probably more than one.
Zak Snyder,
Absolute.
Michael Bay,
M. Night Shyamalan, Ding Dong.
I do not even want to begin to envision a link in Zack Snyder's head. Because it alone would cause me to take the entire Prozac budget for this podcast and shove it right down my throat.
Yeah, and by that he means the actual budget that he writes on, not the actual pills.
By the way, Adam, I want to clear up the movie you said about Josh Trank. Josh Trank isn't on it anymore. He was kicked off.
Yeah, I know. He was kicked off. But, dude, that's still a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, point being, I think we've hammered it home that we do not want Zach touching Star Wars.
But he's going to.
I'm going to remain...
That's the sad part. He's going to.
Yeah, but I'm going to remain more optimistic that Disney and Lucasfilm, especially Kathleen Kennedy, they're going to rein him in immensely. They're going to keep him on a pretty short leash because obviously they're just going to be thinking, okay, we saw what you did with DC. We don't want that with Star Wars because they know Star Wars is a brand. They want to protect the brand. And so knowing Kathleen Kennedy and the kind of writers that they're going to bring on, they're probably going to rein Zach in a lot.
I would hope. In fact, you know what? With Disney, I know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to rein him in. The only thing that I worry about is that he is going to get a prominent property. He's going to get a prominent idea. In fact, he might be able to make his own idea. And then we're going to get Zack Snyder all over it, and it's just going to depress me. In fact, that might be the one Star Wars movie I don't see. Because I am sick of it.
Yeah, just give him the Sith Lords fighting in the spice mines of Kessel. There. That's the Zack Snyder Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Dark, gray, bleak, depressing.
Yeah. I have no problem with that, strangely.
All right. Adam, I think way back when we were doing our Shadows of the Empire LP, I mentioned Zack Snyder. I never wanted to see him direct a Star Wars movie. So sad it's happening now. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch those because I'm pretty sure I mentioned that in one of our LPs for Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah, I mean, the Shadows of the Empire...
responsible for this coming to pass?
I must be in some roundabout way.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, though, the sewer level is the Zack Snyder Star Wars movie. The sewer level of Shadows of the Empire. There's the Zack Snyder Star Wars movie.
There you go. Give him Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah, just the sewer level. Let him, don't give him anything else, just the sewer level.
Just the sewer level.
At least he's not touching the battle on Hoth.
Oh, God, instead of Zack Snyder, I really want to see David Fincher take on a Star Wars film. Fincher worked for ILM for Return of the Jedi. I think he could come back and do a pretty good Star Wars film.
And I know at one point Lucas actually wanted to bring on David Lynch for a Star Wars film. Why not? Let's hand one off to him.
At this point, there are a couple of other directors, but I would again say Zach is just the one I don't want touching Star Wars. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get off my soapbox. And actually, we are really close to ending time tonight. I know that there's, in particular, some April Fool's stories that happened this year, but I would actually say that this year was kind of weak when it came to that stuff. So here's what I'm going to do. If you have a favorite April Fool's story, since we need to wrap things up roughly, this would also be the time when we would bring up a one cool thing, or Romney would bring up Romney's reading club or Romney's viewing club. This would probably be the time, if you have a favorite April Fool's story, go ahead and bring that up as you go along. But we need to go ahead and wrap things up. So, Alex, if people want to get a hold of you to tell you just how much you are wrong about Zack Snyder getting a Star Wars movie, it makes me want to throw up in my mouth every time I say it. And even better, he's going to get Hans Zimmer to do something for him for the score. How do they get a hold of you to watch the ensuing rant and explosion happen?
Well, now there's at least a couple of places you can reach me here. My main channel still is Shadowblazer 3000. I'm still going to produce content for that as long as the videos come in under 15 minutes. For anything longer than that, including my ongoing X-Files LP, go over to my second channel, Shadowblazer 3000 X2, and that's where you can find newer content going up that's longer than 15 minutes, so to speak, because, like I said, I'm under the unfortunate tyrannical reign of a copyright strike for 6 months here. And, of course, follow me on social media. You can find me at Twitter at AlexJShort.
Okay. Stephen Romney, if people want to get a hold of you to tell you just how awesome it would be if Zak Snyder was directing Fooly Cooly, complete with Hans Zimmer to compose the actual score for the series, how would they get a hold of you?
You had to stress over your brain cells for that one.
I did, and it made me throw up in my mouth a little bit.
Well, that's how you know you're doing it right. Anyway, you can always find me here on YouTube at youtube.com/StudioGhostUtah. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Romney'sReviews, no apostrophe. And you can also find me on Twitter at RomneyReviews. And for this week's recommendation of Romney's Viewing Club instead of Romney's Reading Club is Quiz Show by Robert Redford. It's a film about the 21 scandal. I highly recommend it. Very fascinating film. Found it at Game Peddler today. And so, yeah, that's the recommendation for Romney's Viewing Club, Quiz Show by Robert Redford.
Oh, yeah, great movie. I love it.
Did you have an April Fool's story that you liked, Alex?
Or I can throw out a quick one. One of the channels I'm subscribed to, he posted a supposed trailer link to a live-action Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, and given that a live-action Full Metal Alchemist was just announced, I was actually almost inclined to believe it, but then I found out, oh wait, and believe me, this is going to sound a lot more wrong than it really was, but the video he actually linked to was actually to, well, it's a pornographic spoof of Haruhi Suzumiya. Now, keep in mind, the video's innocent. There wasn't any porn in it. It's just some of the live action segments out of that porn spoof.
And yet that has a better taste in my mouth than Zak Snyder. Romney, did you have a April Fool's story that you want to bring up?
I would definitely have to say, with what Linkara did, that one I just gotta give mad props, because...
What did he do? I haven't seen it yet.
Well, he teased a fake team-up review between him and the Cinema Snob of a Power Rangers parody porn comic, and linking the video, it turns out, and he went out of his way to basically go to the great lengths he did, and it links to a parody of Welcome to Night Vale, complete with a weather segment. That's how much he literally did a full 20-minute fake episode.
Was it the Mighty Morphin Rump Rangers or whatever?
Yeah, that was
that he actually did record something with the Cinema Snob for.
The thing is, he didn't actually record a Cinema Snob. It's you think, oh, it's that, but then it just starts and it's a fake episode in the style.
Fun fact, he actually did record material. He doesn't have it anymore, but he actually did have material for it. So that's why I'm laughing at it a little bit, because people asked for it for years, and he's like, I have the material on my camera, and then I think a couple of years later he had to announce that something happened with the camera and he lost the footage.
Yeah, but I just gotta give him mad props, because he basically went to such great lengths to he got the voice right. He basically made a full-on Welcome to Night Vale episode, complete with weather segment, complete with sound effects, and yeah, I just gotta give him that takes commitment.
That's awesome, actually. I'll have to go listen to it. So if people want to get a hold of me and get on my case about all of the statements that I've had and the soapboxes that I've had to stand on this tonight, you can do so in two ways. First of all, is my social media, which is my Twitter handle, @Drac2326. That is where you can reach me to give your feedback on the stories that I covered or had an opinion about. You can talk to all the social justice warriors can try and contact me. I don't know if I'll actually respond to you, but that's just my opinion. You can also follow my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Drac2326. That is where Geek News is hosted. You can watch the big backlog of episodes that we have, including, and it took an extra couple of days to get it out, but the review of Batman v Superman is up, and you guys can all enjoy it. In the meantime, though, if you want to get a hold of the show directly, there are 4 ways to do it, and I'm going to try and make this shorter, but we're going to hope. The first 2 are the social media. If you want to get attached to those, you can go to our Twitter, which is @GeekyNRO, or you can look up Geek News Reviews and Opinions on Facebook and like it. And for both of those, you can leave your opinions on the stories that we do cover. We also do have polls going up asking for your opinions on the specific stories that we have, as well as I also try to put up all the various other things that the panelists try and do, including our other 2 panelists, Aldo Gomez and Brinton Volley. They also do make those threads. One way to get a hold of the show directly, aside from that, is our email address, which is geekyweek@gmail.com. And you can leave the stories there. You can leave your comments on the stories that we did cover. You can leave vile hatred about me talking about butts all day. You can leave vile hatred about me wanting to say I'm going to throw up in my mouth a little every time I mention Zak Snyder. And the fourth way is the most recent one, and the one I'm most proud of, is geekyweek.podomatic.com. Yes, we're on Podomatic, which also means we're on iTunes. And you can go to geekyweek.podomatic.com to get our most recent episode that is up in the archive, which would be the Batman v Superman review. I'm trying to get new episodes up every Tuesday, so you can expect a brand new episode at that time. But you can also subscribe to us on iTunes. We don't have an official page, but you can get downloads of the most recent episodes and the backlog that we have. And I believe that's all 4 of them, right?
Yeah, I think you got it.
Automatic,
Gmail, Facebook, Twitter. Yeah, that's all 4.
I have to make sure of this stuff, guys. I've been sick and I've been in a weird fever dream where I've been in the film Big Trouble in Little China for too long. And now I have to worry about dreaming of irons in my head again. But that's going to go ahead.
In the anime version of Big Trouble in Little China.
As directed by Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro.
Is there an anime version of Big Trouble in Little China?
There could be.
Oh, dude. Do you want to know what I actually have to worry about? I'm going to have a dream where Alex is going to come to me with ginormous eyebrows, and one of them is going to fall off.
Yeah, well, you know what the weird thing would be? You probably would see an anime version of Big Trouble in Little China directed by Hideo Kojima.
That frightens me a little bit, actually.
Written by Guillermo del Toro.
That scares me even more.
Guest starring Paul Rubens. Have fun.
With that, that's gonna go ahead and do it for us tonight. So we hope you guys have enjoyed. We love seeing you guys come and join us for having all of the fun and hilarity that we have with these episodes. And we will be back next week for even more Geek News, reviews, and opinions. So for me, for Romney, for Alex, and for Aldo, we'll see you guys next week for some even more weird stories. Zak Snyder is eating your soul.